the Rainmaker target itself. And as well, since they have the painting buff, it's good to get those long range options backing off of the, I guess, getting them to back off so that your teammates can push in and without as much worry.
Taking a look at the competition or the comps here as we go into game number 1, we are seeing the double end parry, both of them running stealth jump in addition to FM360, who is going to be joining them, but on the 52 gal instead of the end parries. On the opposite side of things, we are seeing for Sweaty Greasy Nerds the charger coming out the splatter scope, so it won't be able to hold that charge, but it will be able to zoom in on those targets a little bit better. Lemon and Lime going to be running in and getting a kill there on FM360. You do have to watch out with a weapon like the 52 gal. The RNG of those shots, despite it being a 2-shot kill, can be somewhat devastating. In the onset of things, we are seeing Sweaty Greasy Nerds take the zone first and an immediate inkjet, so they are not playing around in this game 1.
I can see that for me personally, I feel like the choice of having the regular splatter scope very interesting. Usually, I personally try to play Firefin for, once again, like I said, that bomb rush. But it's also still a really good option, as if you can have your teammates keep you safe and keep the enemy away from the zone, the charger can pretty much lock out just about any spot on this map.
We are seeing Mish here on this Rapid Blaster Pro Deco, and that was one of the weapons that did receive a slight nerf. The radius of those shots from Rapid Blasters being decreased by 6%, so it's a little bit more difficult to just tap shot people behind obstacles, but we do see an assist there and a 3-down situation forced by Gemini, so a great recovery, stopping them at 20 and giving them a massive penalty of 61. And now they have a chance to try and do some spawn camping here. Has to avoid those sniper shots, though, and does so, but at the cost of firing off any shots at all. So Lucas mainly just using that inkjet as a zoning tool, which is a perfectly acceptable tactic for it. We are seeing the specials come out now, though. We see the InkStorm and the inkjet coming out. Lemon and Lime barely staying alive as FM360 will fall, but Mish finishing them off. And now Gemini past the halfway mark. This push is getting very serious here. A duel between the long range and just barely finishing off Riolu. That range and that radius just barely large enough to get the kill.
Here, I think what we just saw is the one thing that I really feared for Sweaty Greasy Nerds is that especially on zones, for if you don't get kills with the Stingray, it essentially kind of is not a huge help to the team as a whole. The Charger really has to make sure that they're killing kills with those Stingrays, and as a result, they nearly lost the lead from Gemini.
And I'm interested to see why they picked the Rapid Blaster Pro Deco. It does come kitted with the Splash Wall and Ink Armor, which aren't inherently specials that you might think of for Splat zones. You may want to go with something like the regular Rapid Blaster that has that Splat Bomb launcher, or even the regular Pro with the Toxic Mist and the Inkstorm. Speaking of Inkstorms, we are seeing one come out now, and yet another Inkjet coming out from Hero. A direct right on top of Mish, looking for the second, but they will ball her out as FM360 rushes for the zone in order to stop this lead. And what a 90 or maybe 45-degree flick to take out Lucas, and that will finish off the game. Great job there by Sweaty Greasy Nerds with that initial push to 20. They lose a little bit of ground, but they don't let themselves get spawn camped. That's one of the biggest downfalls of teams when they get locked out of the objective, especially for splat zones, is that the enemy team will push forward, make sure they get locked into spawn. And this wasn't a particularly high-scoring game either. You can see that the top KA for either team was 8. So a fantastic job there, not necessarily relying on raw aggression, but Sweaty Greasy Nerds getting the job done and showing why they're 3-0 so far.
It's really showcasing with that low KA is that, honestly, even with the Charger only getting 2 kills, they were 2 kills that mattered, that led to the victory in the first place. It's not always about how many kills you get, but even the power of the Charger is that it can be so intimidating that you have to work around the backline itself. And so that allowed, the rest of Sweaty Greasy Nerds to do what they needed to do to make sure that they could push up without fear and get in Gemini's face to keep them in spawn and getting back to the zone.
You bring up a great point there with the Charger not necessarily needing to be that kill factory. I saw a tweet, and I can't remember who it was made by, so I apologize for that, but I saw a great tweet similar to that thought that says, to the Charger that was on my team, you may not have gotten any kills, but you put a lot of pressure on the enemy team, and you ended up creating the path for the Rainmaker that made us win the game, so thank you. And that really does tell me that, it reminds everybody that not every weapon has to fill that Slayer role. You need a backliner, a support, maybe even a flex, somebody that can just turf. So each player does really have their roles cemented for them. And as we get into Rainmaker on Humpback Pump Track, that's going to be even more necessary. This could be another Chargers Playground map. You do have a lot of opportunities here with those windows and those bunkers in order to make some great shots, have some great visibility toward mid. And there's not many obstacles. You just have that raised middle platform and some low walls, and that's about it. There's also an inner ring and an outer ring that if you're more of a flanking weapon, you can use to get behind the enemy team. So for game 2, this could cater to Gemini, who is bringing in a roller with him. That is one of the more flanky weapons. They try and get behind the enemy team, maybe using something like Ninja Squid. In this case, they're going to be running Stealth Jump and Quick Respawn instead. And on the opposite side of things, Sweaty Greasy Nerds not really deviating too much. They'll be bringing in that double Inkjet, double end parry comp, along with the Splatter Scope still. So Riolu not really feeling scared to bring that back in.
Right now, I think in order to keep that charger down, that's probably going to be Mish's main goal, is that they need to use their range to keep that charger occupied. Because if the charger is too busy having to fight the Rapid, and the Rapid can just get in those 2 to 3 shots and keep that charger occupied, that's essentially going to force a 3v4 on the side of Sweaty Greasy Nerds, allowing Gemini to start making some moves.
Nice job there by Mish, who is, for a Rapid Blaster, pretty far pushed forward. Another weapon I want to highlight is the custom Dually Squelchers. That weapon has so much range, and even with the recent nerf to it that increases the ink consumption of it by 20%, it can still be a very devastating weapon if you're at the appropriate range. We are seeing the Rainmaker getting pushed in here, trying to get past the halfway mark. LSDJ being the bodyguard there will pay for it with his life, as Hero will also fall with that Inkjet being used up, but the Rainmaker's still alive, and that's exactly what they wanted. A huge kill there by the Sniper as well to take out a flanker, and they will get all the way up to 14, so bodies fall, but the most important one lives as the Rainmaker gets a huge lead in the first minute 15. And not only that, but the game finishes here. They push all the way to 14, and they finish it off with another quick pop. So an immediate recovery there after the Rainmaker will fall. And Sweaty Greasy Nerds looking fantastic in these first 2 games.
Right there, I could see Riolu doing exactly what I hoped they would do. They had gone on that elbow, and the thing with the elbow on not Rainmaker, sorry, but Humpback Puck Track, is that long-range options can really shut that area down without, like, any difficulty at all, because it's up to the enemy team to come out of their spawn and choose either to go for that long-range option or to drop down and stop the objective, be it Clam Blitz or Tower Control or Rainmaker, like we just saw here. The long-range option gets to just sit there at the edge and just keep killing people as they come out of their spawn, because they can reach them people coming out of their spawn before they can even want to make a move. And so that allowed Riolu to just once again be that strong anchor point, allow everyone else from Sweaty Greasy Nerds to jump in and continue that push to get the knockout.
And I'm glad you brought that up. You have a lot of experience in that regard as well. And it can be, somewhat difficult, I would imagine, for longer range players, especially chargers, to know when to kind of stay back, stay in one of those safe windows, maybe on high ground, and then when to push forward when a push is being made, when and where to position yourself. Do you sort of stay in top mid and wait and see if anybody drops down and tries to flank? Do you bring up the rear and just try and pick people off that are trying to face the Rainmaker? So it's a very interesting dynamic. As we go on now to tower control, it is going to, be likely that your longer range player, if we do see Gemini get on the tower here, is going to be a likely Riolu that will jump on. You want your longer range player that can still have an impact on the game to be the one riding the tower, if anybody, while your shorter range members can push forward. So it will require a reverse sweep now for Gemini to avoid falling to 2-2. If they want to go up to 3-1, they'll have to win out on tower control, Clam Blitz, and Splat Zones once more. So Snapper Canal, I actually like watching this map a lot. It's a very wide open map. You go from that higher elevation all the way down to mid. And sometimes there's even parts of this map that you don't use, sort of reminiscent of a Piranha Pit, where you're focusing maybe just in mid or on one side of the map, and the other side never really gets used.
Yeah, right now I'm curious to see what all of the members are both teams are gonna run. I wonder if we're gonna see a Rapid Pro out of Michigan. I don't know if they're gonna start changing their minds, see if maybe they're feeling it's not necessarily working, or maybe if they're gonna just change their game plan and their mentality going into this match entirely. Maybe they'll start focusing the Charger more, or maybe they'll just focus on weakening the rest of the enemies more and staying out of the Charger's sights, so that the rest of their teammates can get in, kill those enemies, and then they can all overwhelm the Charger at once. There's always, it's old saying, there's more than one way to skin a cat, whether you want to take out the back line first and then collapse on everyone else, or collapse on everyone else and then eventually overwhelm the back line. And I feel like especially on Snapper, due to the map being so big, being an anchor is very important, because they can easily jump and keep that push going while you're struggling to get out of spawn, struggling to get down and try and stop this push.
And speaking of this map, I wonder if we'll see a weapon archetype that we really haven't seen in this set so far, and that's Splatlings. Splatlings do tend to do very well on this map. You could bring in the newly buffed Hydra, the damage when fully spun up going up to 40 from 35, and when not fully spun up to 32 from 28, but they will be sticking mostly with what they know so far. The biggest difference here is that we will now see a custom Jet Squelcher, which is going to have that Burst Bomb and Stingray. So because it is tower control, Stingray, a very popular option. We are still seeing 3 end parries in the lobby, as we see one of them, Lemon and Lime, roll out here trying to get some kills onto Impact. He gets a few shots, not going to be able to finish them off, and they will end up trading, but that's a 3-down situation, as we are seeing Sweaty Greasy Nerds attempt to push forward yet again. And as predicted, we are seeing the Charger being the one riding the zone. And with this map, you have to be incredibly careful, because there's water on such a large portion of this tower path. You can't jump off just anytime you want to.
Right now, I'm really liking to see that right now the Gemini is trying to overwhelm the Sweaty Greasy Nerds, so that way that they can keep them busy, keep them occupied, and keep that Charger busy. Because one of the things that is really hard, in particular, for a Charger to hit are dualies. They can roll, and it really takes, if you miss that shot on the first, then the dualies roll into you and get that kill and keep your Charger down. And so with this plan, I'm seeming to kind of work out in their favor, but I also think Gemini just needs to remember not to rush in too hard and remember to stay grouped up.
And what I really like that Gemini's doing is they're not trying to go into 1v1s anymore. I think they've seen in the first 2 games that they're not winning the vast majority of these 1v1s, and so they're double teaming people like Lemon and Lime, who are having such a heavy, aggressive, and offensive impact on the game. Tower push does get all the way to checkpoint 1. Impact trying to keep the members of Sweaty Greasy Nerds busy, as is Lucas, who does dissuade LSDJ, doesn't quite get the kill themselves, but does force them into the water a little bit, which is a bit of an unfortunate end there. And even with the nerf to the Inkjet net, you can see where they're going to be landing a little bit easier. If you still position it perfectly to where you're behind a wall or somewhere that's not easily spotted, you can still be relatively safe.
I thought that was honestly a great play on the part of choosing to be that aggressive on the Stingray, because ever since I believe it was 2 patches ago, that the Stingray can no longer sit directly in their spawn. You can jump back to spawn, but you no longer have the safety of staying in that bubble. And so being able to choose to jump and get in their face to keep that Stingray down and kill it was a really good decision and play on their part.
Members of Gemini jumping over the tower, not really paying it much attention yet, trying to get some of these members of Sweaty Greasy Nerds down. Impact barely staying alive as they were about to fall into the water, and that's a 3-down situation. The last one about to go down, and they will. So effectively a full wipe here forced by Gemini, and they're keeping this match alive. I'm really liking the tenacity that they're bringing into this game so far, but here comes a Stingray and an Inkstorm. Going to be pushing forward here is Impact, looking for a kill into LSDJ, who just continues rolling around, tries to find a drag shot there, but will not, and can't actually find the right target. Finally does get the kill onto Hero, but they were having trouble deciding who to take out first, and so I think if they had just prioritized one or the other, they might have come away with 2 kills in that regard. But we are seeing quite a lot of map control on the side of Sweaty Greasy Nerds, and they still have the lead with under 2 minutes left to go. But they are continuously falling 3 down, 2 down, with FM360 winning that battle here on the dualies. This could be the lead-taking push right here.
Right now, it's seeming that Gemini is really starting to get together on keeping the Charger busy, keeping the rest of the front line busy, and also making sure to double team on them, like we mentioned that we were doing earlier. Right now, but it's also seeming that the Sweaty Greasy Nerds is matching them, tit for tat in that aspect, making sure that they, team up on them and keep them down. And right now, it's honestly looking like a pretty even match so far.
Another great selling point of those end parries is that you don't necessarily need drop roller when you use that Inkjet. It helps, but you can still roll based on the weapon itself rather than a perk when you land back from that Inkjet, which is part of why it's so safe to use it compared to other Inkjet weapons. We are seeing multiple Stingrays come out, one for each side. Riolu's back all the way up near their spawn, and we'll get a kill there onto FM360, who was not on the tower, but that's still an important pick to get. Impact looking for a couple of shots as Hero and Lemon and Lime are just waiting for them to land once again, and bodies are being traded back and forth here. Nice kill there by Niche, who's looking to save their positioning a little bit, but they were way too close to that Inkjet. If you're not firing at the Inkjet and you're just running away, then it's likely that the Inkjet can just kind of hover over you and wait until you get close enough to where they can shoot essentially straight down and get a kill here. 3-down situation forced, as Hero is the last one alive for Sweaty Greasy Nerds. And they are trying to get something going here. They have no specials currently. They do have a bit of time to build them up, but this one will likely have to go to overtime if they want to make the push all the way to 52.
Right now, it's seeming that Gemini, while it took them perhaps a few more games than they would have liked to get kind of the momentum going against Sweaty Greasy Nerds, it seems like they're finally starting to get a feel for how Sweaty Greasy Nerds play, what they need to do to counteract that. Right now, they've already taken the charger out, which means there's no Stingray for them to stop this push, giving Gemini the win.
Beautiful job there. Essentially a full wipe, actually, in the last 20 seconds of play there. And I really think that Gemini's team coordination has gone up exponentially since games 1 and 2. I don't know if it was the team comp. I don't know if it was internal comms. But whatever they were doing was working fantastically. You can see that their shorter range players leading the charge there. Impact and Lucas, 17 KAs respectively on the end parries and the Tenatech there. So this could end up being a reverse sweep. We'll have to see as we move on to Clam Blitz now on Wahoo World, a relatively new map, the second newest, only to New Albacore Hotel. So this could be another situation where they can excel here. Of course, one special that we've seen a little bit of but could come out is the Baller. The Baller being a fantastic special for a mode like this one. In addition to that, Bubble Blower, which hasn't really been seen that much either, could be another great choice for Wahoo World. This map, especially in the center, does give you those two different verticals, those two different elevations. You can either try and shark around on the lower ground, try and get behind the enemy team that way, but your longer range weapons are likely just going to stay positioned on high ground, whether that's a little bit further back on those winding streets, or if they're brave enough and have the map control to stay in mid. So with Clam Blitz, it does promote a little bit more movement than some other objectives. You know, for something like tower control or especially splat zones, you may just want to be kind of hanging around mid as long as you stay alive. But for Clam Blitz, you either have to be jumping to a teammate that's over by the barrier or consistently moving around to get those clams. So will the team compositions change? Likely a little bit, but I think Gemini has found something that they're really, really comfortable with.
Yeah, I think out of all the maps that we currently have, I think Wahoo World is a map where you can play, honestly, just about anything. There isn't really any weapon that, at least that I've noticed so far, that hasn't just been seen at all, because the map in itself is kind of, I guess, in a way, generic. You know, there's nothing super glaring about it. There's not a huge gimmick or anything about it that, you know, absolutely nothing could work on it. And as you can see, we kind of have a pretty standard comp going here. Mish going back to the Rapid Pro, which I honestly think is a really strong choice, because with the Rapid Pro's range, you can easily poke into mid and start getting that chip damage on people. Surprised to see Riolu, though, choosing to run off the back line this time and going the Baller, as we can see, is a change for Clam Blitz.
Yeah, and a change in weapon range as well. I want to talk about also the ratio of end parries has gone down from 3 to 1, being replaced by a couple of Tenatechs on the side of Gemini. The barrier broken now. That's going to give the early lead over to Sweaty Greasy Nerds, and Riolu going to be ballering in to try and keep this push alive. They have two specials currently out, that Baller and that InkStorm. The Baller will end up getting killed onto FM360, looking for those final shots onto Impact, but will not be able to get anything. In addition to that, 3 members of Gemini and 2 members of Sweaty Greasy Nerds running stealth jump in an attempt to be a bit sneakier about getting over to that barricade. Lemon and Lime camping that spawn as well. Since that barrier was popped, Gemini does have what is colloquially referred to as the pity clam, that power clam that does drop once the barrier comes back up. So this does give them an opportunity, but in spite of that, both teams with an exactly equal number of clams was 14-14. So both teams with a good shot here to get another lead push.
Yeah, currently we're seeing that Sweaty Greasy Nerds is the one holding the top mid, which, like most maps, is the most important, but especially for Wahoo World, the heavy is just setting up camp, allowing the teammates to jump in and just keep that pressure up on Team Gemini. Right now we're seeing that they finally got the power clam, and keeping map control in Clam Blitz is especially important, not just for the general reason you want to keep map control, but also for the simple fact that it lets you see where the clams are. You can go easily and retrieve more clams and keep that push going and stall that push out as well by just constantly adding clams.
And you usually want to have one of your high aggression weapons in their spawn, essentially, trying to get as many members as you can or distract as many members as you can while your team throws in those clams. In that case, it was Lemon and Lime. Lemon and Lime, using that Inkjet, was able to get the kill and followed it up with yet another kill just with their main weapon. But we see now 2 power clams and 29 total clams on the side of Gemini. They're really looking to make something happen here, but they will lose one of their power clams. However, we are seeing Lucas get 1 kill in the form of a trade. They lose all but one of their members, and Impact throwing everything in the kitchen sink at Sweaty Greasy Nerds, but it will will come to nothing as they end up falling to the tag team of LSDJ and Riolu. So what could have been a devastating push there and a genuine attempt to regain the lead falls just a bit short. And now Sweaty Greasy Nerds can go back to what they were doing before, regaining that control. LSDJ falling there to a greatly placed slap bomb there from Impact. And now it's just about getting those picks. That's what's going to help you, if you're Gemini and don't have anything on the board yet, to push forward in the last 2 minutes.
I think, unfortunately, what we saw there is that Gemini, unfortunately, didn't really consider the fact that after getting that wipe on, or that not necessarily wipe, but that huge 3 down on Sweaty Greasy Nerds, that they had the time to respawn as well while they were trying to move across the map to get the power clams into that. That's allowed them, Sweaty Greasy Nerds, to just run through them all and make them lose 3 balls, which is really unfortunate. A little more patience there, I think, would have given them the opportunity to really get a really devastating push on their side.
And something else that's interesting that I find is that a lot of these team fights are happening on the lower elevation of this midsection, the one that's actually rotating. So you can find yourself into some pretty tight spaces, some pretty narrow hallways, and you're allowing those longer range weapons like we see Mishir on the Rapid Blaster Pro Deco gives them a better chance to succeed. The Dualies, however, can roll in and now expending those specials to try and get an even further push on their lead. The InkStorm and the Bubbles making that happen. They're getting rid of a good portion of their penalty as we do see the Ink Armor coming out on the side of Gemini. Sweaty Greasy Nerds does lose 3 of their members, but they will eliminate their penalty and get a little bit more points, just a few. Not quite the end of the game, though. Nice double kill there by Impact to fully shut that one down. But we are in the final minute here. So far, there has not been a single break on the barrier on the side of Gemini. So this really does come down to, do they have enough fortitude and patience to push this one forward? The Inkjet will lose out here as LSDJ tries to stay alive and desperately take out FM360 here. They do manage the former, but not the latter, as that power clan is still in possession of Gemini. 1 member will fall here, and that's a 3-down situation. So again, Sweaty Greasy Nerds so strong at shutting down these pushes before they even get close to the barricade.
Right now, I think it's the thing that we can see Gemini doing really well. Both teams are really excellent on their defense. But I think where Gemini is struggling is they can't seem to really get their offense going. They have a lot of good aggression. They're getting the kills that they need. But unfortunately, maybe they're not having the clams ready when they need to get that push in. Right now, they only don't have a power ball, and I think that is unfortunately a bit for Gemini.
Yeah, 10 clams at the end of the game is a pittance when you haven't even broken the barricade once. So after a huge amount of fight was shown in that game number 3, they lose a lot of that fire and that traction, and they will fall in game number 4 and lose out on the set to Sweaty Greasy Nerds. We see Hero leading the charge there, was on that heavy Splatling deco the whole time, using those bubbles to help engage, and they'll come away with a 19 KA because of it. So that will cap off the perfect 4-0 pool stage for Sweaty Greasy Nerds. They will win their sets 3-1, 3-2, 3-2, and 3-0. So it wasn't exactly clean, but they got the job done. Gemini, their fate a little more in question here. It looks like they'll be falling to the redemption bracket. So for Pool A9, Sweaty Greasy Nerds with a 4-0 record and Fantasy with a 3-1 record will be going to top 32 automatically. Gemini at 2-2 and Conflicting Schedules at 1 and 3 will go on to the redemption bracket, and Ultra Savory Woomy will fall to the bronze bracket. That was a great set.